of the year.
The $50 million you talked about in potential social program cuts, under your purview or as part of that negotiated?
No, there's two other pieces. Remember I said the other night there's a $200 million difference. If you take the redesign and restructuring of the workforce that I'm talking about, by the end of the year, we think that going into 09, that's probably going to save us roughly $100 million. We still look at another 100. And what I've said, and I got meetings, and I've had meetings with labor leaders, that we're going to have to look at the benefit structures. That's got to be reduced, and I targeted roughly $50 million. That's pension, health care, all of these things. And then the other piece is the kinds of programs that we are offering, that the services we're delivering themselves. We've got to find a way to do those much more efficiently in terms of contracts with outside providers. We rely on community providers that give a lot of the services to citizens in our state, and we're going to have to relook at all of those things and see if we can find another $50 million. That will be part of the budget submission, Jim. The $50 million on the benefits is all going to be part of the negotiations on the contracts. Council 94 expires June of next year, so basically all the contracts, the vast majority, will be open, and we're going to have to go through a negotiation of collective bargaining with the labor union.
I've heard some of the stakeholders in this, and I'm sure you've heard the same criticism. Carcieri's just doing his own thing. He's the CEO. He hasn't brought anybody to the table. The unions are upset because, you don't feel like they're bringing him into the fold. It's going to be a dictate. How do you answer that criticism that this is kind of, you're unilaterally doing this and you haven't really brought anybody in?
No. Well, first of all, it's tough to put this all together within my own departments. We've spent several months doing this. I am right now going through the process of laying this all out, as much detail as I can, with all of the stakeholders. And at the end of the day, saying that if you got better ideas, I'm open to them, but nobody's got a better solution other than I hear people talking about raising taxes. Well, no, I am looking out for all of the working families in Rhode Island. The taxes are too high already, so that's not an option. And so I'm just saying that this is not a time to point fingers, and I understand it's not easy for the labor people. They got a job to represent their members. All I'm saying is we cannot afford to do what we've been doing the way we've been doing it.
How much of what you're going to announce tomorrow is potentially going to wind up in litigation, or is that the part you can control and you feel by executive authority you have the right to go in and do this?
Yeah, we believe that in terms of the changes and the redesign of what we're doing, we can do that. All right, that's within the executive authority.
So that's not going to wind up in court. Renegotiation of contract is a whole different issue.
I hope that's exactly right. I hope it won't. All right, there's a whole under the contracts. For those that are unionized, there's a whole series of bumping rules, which is another complication.
But are there layoff provisions in those contracts?
Yes. And so we can go through this, but what I'm saying to you, the process of bumping, that's why we need to start now. All I can identify is, and the department directors have identified, is jobs that are going to be eliminated as part of the restructuring and redesign. Who actually ends up, at the end of the day, who the individual is that ends up without a job, we don't know.
Do you
feel all of this bumping takes place?
As you look at that flow chart, is it a mix of Indians to chiefs, or is it?
It is. It's all the way across the board. Okay, there's independent contractors, so they're outside contractors. There's management layers, and there are union members. So it's all of these.
Don't you also have a problem with the 20-year rule? Can you go in the 20-year rule, just to, for the people who don't know about it, if you've been in state government 20 years, it's very difficult to get rid of somebody because of that. It kicks in.
Not difficult. You can't do it. They have statutory
So some of the management people you're going to look at may be more vulnerable if they're in under the 20 years if you're consolidating, right?
Well, and then the other issues, some of the people who have been 20 years or longer actually are eligible to retire. And so we're looking at, would this be an appropriate time to retire for some of these people? By the way, there are some long service people who want to stay. So, this is across the board, but in some cases, yes, the 20-year rule is going to be a problem.
Okay, we got an awful lot more to cover. I just wanted to get that out of the way, but we have more in the next segment. Stick with us. We'll be back after a short break with Rhode Island Governor Don Carcieri. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back to 6 News on the Record. If you're just joining us, we are talking with Rhode Island Governor Don Carcieri, who has a big week ahead of him. But as we say, every week's a big week in the governor's chair. Right. A lot of focus on the State House, probably not of what you would like to see, trying to get Rhode Island back on a positive track. A lot going on. Former House Majority Leader Jerry Martineau in the news this week, and again, something that I think just reinforces Rhode Islanders' skepticism about legislators up there. We don't want to paint with a broad brush, but you know, you knew the players. You weren't there when he was in a leadership role, and maybe just a little to kind of the end of it. What is your reaction as governor and as a citizen of Rhode Island when you see something like that this
week?
Like
most people. I mean, it's terrible. It's terrible. You know, people are elected to positions of public service, public trust, and so forth, and we've got too many cases where, you know, people are using that position to benefit themselves personally, and that's not public service.
And Martineau, it just seems so blatant. I mean, it was just a shell game. 10 million bags, and he only delivered 2 million. I mean, what amazes me is that people don't think that they're going to get caught in this. Does that stupefy you?
It's staggering to me. When I came in, I said I believed there was a culture. What I meant by a culture, it's sort of a mindset that is permeated, unfortunately, you know, permeates, that this is okay. This is okay. One of the things that struck me, and I've got nothing against Stephen Alves, the Senate Finance Chair, and he's defending himself vis-a-vis the Dewey pile, you know, which I think was absurd. Mm-hmm. But as part of the defense, he was sort of saying, well, I really wasn't angry at Johnston, all right, but then somebody brought up Woonsocket. So, well, yeah, I was angry there. Well, come on. Don't you see how bad that is? You shouldn't even be concerned, personally, what's going on with any community, any company, or whatever, in terms of its impact on you personally. That's what public service is about. If you want to go out and make a living, all right, go out and make a living. Don't use your position within either the House or the Senate to make a living. That's the problem right now. It goes to the root, and I've said publicly, and I'm going to sit down with the Ethics Commission, because I think they've got to drive this harder. We've got to eliminate these conflicts. People have to understand that when they're elected, there's a public trust, and they've got to abide by that. And if they don't want to do that, then don't run for office.
You seem really angry. You seem angry.
I am, because you know we are working so hard to build this state. There's so many good things happening, Jim. Really, yeah. Look around the city, look around the state. And when you talk to people who have come here, just up to Fidelity last night, I mean, the people are thrilled. They're now in Providence. They're going to be in the new building up there. They love the state. This kind of stuff just casts a whole cloud and a pall over the state. That's why I got angry, because you know this is what kind of holds us back. You know, what does the media talk about around the country? You know, oh, Rhode Island. That's the place where, you know, another indictment. So I credit Bob Carcieri, the U.S. Attorney. I credit the state police, because they work together. They've done a great job on these things. We have to root it out. Yeah, it bothers me, you know, that it keeps coming, you know, because, as I said, we're working hard to build the state up.
You think Al should resign his position?
Yeah, I said that. There's no question in my mind he should. He should step down as finance chair at the minimum.
Yeah. And let's talk about Senate President Joe Montalbano, who has been, you know, off the radar screen. He admits to the ethics violations, and it almost seems business as usual. Nothing's been happening. Have you met with Mr. Montalbano since that?
No, actually, I know we're taping on a Thursday. I'm meeting with him later this afternoon to go over all of these changes. It's the first time I really will have met with him since all this came down.
Do you plan to have any words with him about his ethics situation, or is that not your place?
You know, I think it's not entirely my place, right? The Ethics Commission needed to deal with that. You know, I think it's really unfortunate. A $12,000 fine with an Ethics Commission, and it's similar. You know, there were things not disclosed. It's like Martineau. He didn't disclose the fact that he was doing business with CVS.
But you know, he's a lawyer. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. Any judge in the country will tell you that.
No, well, you know, generally this is part of remember the last campaign. Part of the problem here is the lawyers, the insurance brokers and all have said they don't have to disclose their clients. Well, I don't believe that's true if you're a legislator. Mm-hmm. All right. To me, they should disclose their client if their client is somebody that has business before the state.